How's it going, guys? I want to share with you guys my updated T-Rex build for the new TLC Tyrannosaurus Rex update. Um, I just want to be able to get this video out to you guys as fast as possible, so I only have a little bit of combat footage at the end of the video, so be sure to stick around for that. But I want to take this moment to apologize to you guys because I have not uploaded in a little while. I've been playing some other games. I've been playing like Ark Survival Ascend and things like that, which is another dinosaur game. So I would like to know from you guys, like, do you guys want to see a little bit of Ark footage from me on this channel? Or do you just want to see strictly Path of Titans? I would like to know. So let me know in the comments what you think of that. Do you guys want to see a different dinosaur game played on this channel? Or do you guys just want to see Path of Titans? I would really like to know. So let me know down in the comments. But I do want to get into this build. I first off do want to say with the TLC, I really love the look. It looks great. I love the dinosaurs look, and I love the rework that they did for this dinosaur, for the Tyrannosaurus Rex. It's my favorite dino. So also solid note, if you are a solo player like myself, this build is great for you. This is a really good, solid solo build, in my opinion. It helps you get in, get the fight over with, do what you need to do for damage, and get out, you know? So it's super good for those, 1v1s and things like that. In a big group, it's going to be a little harder. There's other options, and I do want to make another build video kind of more geared towards group play, but for solo play and just even if you're in a group, this is still a really good build. So um, I guess we'll just start off where we always do, which is the subspecies. So as you guys can see, I'm still running the Batara subspecies, and if you're new to the game, there's 3 subspecies you could pick from. The first one would be the Rex, which is 25% knockback resist. This doesn't really do you a whole lot of favors. It's only really good if you're going to be in a long, drawn-out fight, especially against something that has a lot of knockback on his tail, for like an Arma or a Bars Bolia, something like that. So to me, this is a little bit limited, but if you like the look of the dino, go for it. To be honest, with these subspecies, they only give you a small little edge. It's not really worth, dying over. So really just pick the character model that looks the best to you and things like that. But if you want to be super sweaty, you can go with what we're about to talk about right now, which is the Batar subspecies, the plus 3% attack damage. And again, I forgot to mention, there's also the plus 10% fracture damage, but fracture damage in the game is almost literally no damage. When you hit somebody with fracture damage, it applies a debuff on them. It doesn't do a lot of damage. So this 10% is really nothing in terms of what it does. So, but we're got the plus 3% attack damage, which is super awesome. We've been running this an attack Rex honestly for the longest of times. So we're still running it today, and that's what we're running for the subspecies, increased damage. For the passives, we have 2 new passives that they've added on this dinosaur. First one is Padded Souls, and it says here that you are faster and quieter in crouched movement and speed, and having a boosted stamina regeneration while walking and trotting. So that stamina regeneration while walking and trotting is super good. I play on console a lot, and it's a little hard to get the trotting happening, so I usually just walk, but still, I'm getting the stamina regeneration, right? And that's awesome. And of course, the quieter crouch movement is great too. And the crouch speed movement is also super noticeable, which is important. We'll talk about another ability in a second that has to do with crouching, but that's the first one. And then, of course, we have Strong Ankles, which is taking 25% reduced damage to hits on your legs. So you take less damage, more like to like small creatures, like you imagine like a raptor or things like that, or smaller dino is going to hit you in the legs. You're going to take reduced damage. So that's really cool. I like that this is a little bit of defense on the dinosaur. But I don't know at which stage you get these during the growth, because my dinosaur is already full grown. But you're going to want to get both of these, of course, right? Moving on to your regular bite attack. It's interesting. It doesn't have a category. It's not a hit slot or nothing. So it's weird that it's right there. But the regular bite causes high damage. This is your spammable ability. And for future build, I want to do a clamp build, and see how that works really. And of course, this would be your regular spammable attack for that too. But this is your main damage and is your regular bite. So that's what we're going to be working with when it talks about damage for this build. So that's pretty standard. Looking at the head slot though, we've now lost a few things. We don't have face tank anymore, which to me that's a good thing, because I never really liked face tank that much. I've always been a bone break fan, so when they reworked bone break, it really kind of killed my build and killed my Rex a little bit. I didn't really care for not having bone break, but we're now still in a situation where we don't have a good bone break. You can achieve it through stacking fracture, and they've actually made it so that bone snap, if it's charged really well, can bone break a smaller target off one hit. So there is a bone break build out there, but I want to gear towards a little bit more of a damage build, which is why I'm making this video. So we'll talk about these abilities real quick, I guess. So Bone Snap is a charge up bite that's, does a lot of fracture and on a small target can bone break, which is a CC. That's super good for catching a target, but we're not running that. And of course we also have the new ability, which is Clamp, which is a bite that holds on to your target, and it will hold on to them as long as your stamina allows. So keep in mind it's going to start draining your stamina when you pick them up or grab them. And you're also immune to knockbacks while carrying a dinosaur. That's pretty cool. That actually might really involve a lot of group play, so if you're going to do a group build, that might be something you want to do. But for our build today, we're talking about the Crushing Bite, and this is something I ran back in our old Bone Break build videos. We were running Crushing Bite, so as it reads, it does low amount of fracture, and it still does a lower amount of fracture. They've increased the amount of fracture that it does do, but it's still lower than like Bone Snap and stuff. But as you can see, it can trigger a full bone break. The one little thing I wanted to try to test a little bit more before I put this video out, which I wasn't able to, is I don't know if it will like full bone break a smaller target on one hit. I'm not sure if it fully bone breaks. I know it does a lot of fracture. I'm not sure. So if somebody can let me know when they're testing this build and running this build, I would like to know if it actually can like full bone break like a styra or something like that, but the fracture damage that this implies, or the fracture that it lands on the target, is super important. This is going to help us get our build online, so keep that in mind. This does fracture damage. Moving on to our senses. We are running Killing Blow, so I'll just talk about the other abilities real quick. So we now have the brand new ability, Blood Rivalry, which is pretty cool. Landing a bite attack against an enemy will give you a stack of Blood Rivalry. Reaching 3 stacks grants you 60-second buff, increasing your fracture damage by 50%. This would be huge if you're running a build where you're trying to just CC your targets and things like that. You also have Power Couple, which I think is a pretty cool idea. If you're running in a group with another Tyrannosaurus in your group, you have 200 meters, you gain 25% increased status effect recovery, and 25% slower food and water drain, because they have made it so that the Rex kind of starves out a little bit faster now. So that's something you want to, if you want to play with a friend or in a group with another Tyrannosaur, that will help you out quite a bit playing in a group with that. We're running for our build though, Killing Blows, which is dealing 30% increased damage while a creature is not in your group, has a fracture or a bone break on it. So whenever you apply a fracture or a bone break to the target, you're getting 30% increased damage. So now you're starting to see why it's important that we're running Crushing Bite on our build. So that is for the 30% increased damage. So you might want to think of this as just kind of a setup to get that damage going. For Metabolism, you just have Hypercarnivore, which again just means you can only eat fresh meat. They did take away the other one. I think it was called Scavenger, I believe, was the other Metabolism thing. Getting into our hide, we have a few new ones, actually. I think they're all new. And I haven't unlocked a few of these just because of the marks, and I don't really have an interest in running these ones. But there's a couple here that I think are interesting. Tyrant's Presence, which is reducing the armor of a smaller target, which is kind of cool. They lose 25% of their armor, sorry. Yeah, so that's kind of cool. And then we have King's Mantle, which is what I'm interested in running. Taking hits grants a stacking 2% damage boost up to 10% for 10 seconds. So the more something is hitting you, especially if you're in like a 1v1 with another bigger dinosaur and things like that, and you're just taking hits consistently, this is going to give you that increased damage, 10% increased damage if you take at least 5 hits, right? So you get a 10-second boost right here, which is super awesome. These other builds are kind of interesting too. I'm not going to jump into them too much because I kind of feel like I'm rambling a little bit, so we'll just stick to what we're running. Going over to the lag slot, we're running Surprising Attack, which is this is kind of a cool ability. This is something like I think called Red Herring on the modded servers for the mod Rex. I think it's the PT Rex. After crouching for 10 seconds, you can sprint forward and gain a 20% speed boost and 100% acceleration boost for 10 seconds during this time. You are also immune to a knockback. This is only usable out of combat and will disable upon entering the combat. So this is a super cool little boost to your T-Rex to try to jump somebody real quick or catch up to somebody, things like that. If you're hunting someone, you can kind of get the jump on them from further out. So I really am kind of happy. I think this is going to be interesting to use this in certain fights and things like that. So super cool build. I'm glad that they put this on here. And I will show you what that looks like right now. moving on to the tail. So for our tail, we just have the regular tail attack that's been put into the game, causes a little bit of knockback and very little bit of damage. So this does not do a lot of damage, so you really have to rely on your head and your regular bite for your damage. But you want to run tail attack, of course, it's the only slot that you can put in there. For the voices, where it gets interesting, there's a few unique options here. For our build, we're running Terrible Roar, which is a call that boosts your damage by 25% and reduces cooldowns by 25% for all your Tyrannosaurus in group. This does not stack, however. So you could basically only have one person running this. If you're running two T-Rexes in a group, you want only one person running this ability right here, because it doesn't stack. So there's no point to use two of them in a group. But that increased 25% damage is super huge, because if you haven't noticed, what we're doing already with this build is we're building damage, lots of damage. So we already have 3% increased attack damage from our subspecies that we talked about, right, which is right over here, the plus 3% right up there on the Patara subspecies. And then we have our senses, where we gain another 30% increased damage. And this is to a creature that's fractured, so we're going to want to apply fracture by using Crush and Bite. So that's how we get that 30% on our build. And then of course we're running the King's Mantle, so defensively speaking, while we're taking hits, we're getting 2% increased damage boost up to 10% for 10 seconds. So we're getting another 10% increased damage there. And then of course Terrible Roar, this is the ability you want to use prior to going into the fight. Note that it does take a little while to actually get this thing to activate. There's a big animation with it, so be mindful of that and when you're using it and how you're using it, because you don't want to be taking damage while doing the roar. Now, the little bit of footage I'm going to show you here in a bit, I didn't understand the timing of it. I was still getting used to it, so I've kind of made a little mistake of taking damage while roaring. And one of the clips, I actually get jumped by another T-Rex. I was hunting him, and then he turned around, hunted me, and when I went around the corner, sorry, he just, he just blasted me with it. But I was able to out DPS him based on this build alone. So definitely stick around for the footage here that I'm about to show you, because it does prove the concept that this build is really, really good for just a sheer amount of damage. So you want to start the fight with Terrible Roar, get that 25% increased damage. You then want to enter the fight and hit them with a Fracture, which is by using Crush and Bite. And as soon as you land that, you want to just bite your way to victory, because as they're hitting you, you're going to up your damage by 10% again because of King's Mantle. And of course you've already got the 30% increased damage going because of that fracture that you landed early on. And of course Tyrant's Roar is already running, which is the 25%. So this is just a big powerhouse build, super good for a solo player and things like that. There is a lot more stuff you can do with some of these other things. I want to get into another build for like a clamp build, and I will share that with you guys when I get it done and ready. But for now, for the release of the TLC, we have our Rex build. This is our solo kind of Rex build that we're running, and I think is super, super awesome. A lot of damage, a lot of power, and I do think that they have now made our T-Rex viable again to run, and I am super, super excited to play this thing. So thank you guys so much for being in the video and checking it out and seeing what's what. I hope you guys enjoy the video, and let me know down in the comments what you think for the T-Rex, if you like the TLC, if you don't. And let me know what if this build is any good to you, if you enjoy it or not. But I'll catch you in the next one. Stick around for the footage, and we'll see you later. All right, peace.